Hey everyone, it's the Gadget Guru. Me and my friend were talking the other day, and we were discussing, he wanted to build a new deck. He's been playing anti-meta for a while now, but his anti-meta just wasn't cutting it in this format. So he came to me and asked me, he wanted me to help him rebuild his deck. And when I started thinking about it, I was like, okay, this seems like a reasonable chore, it's going to take a little bit of work. And then I started thinking about it. Usually when we build a deck, we throw a bunch of cards into a deck that look good and go, okay, let's play test this. That's what we do, because that's what we've been taught to do by default pretty much. But, when I was sitting there, I was thinking about it, I asked him, what do you want this deck to do? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, when I'm thinking about this, and I'm going to build a deck, sorry about the cars and stuff, anyways, when I'm going to build a deck, how I always do it, I didn't know other people don't do this. I mean, some of you might not. When I build a deck, I think of a specific purpose. One purpose that I want my deck to be able to do. Once I have that purpose, then I go, okay, what cards do I need to do this? Like with Gadget. The purpose I wanted would be to continually have monsters and to basically just mess my opponent over with back rows. And that's it. Monster, 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 while I have like 5 back rows every turn. Now, what is the obvious solution to that? Gadget. Gadgets search another one of themselves every single turn, and they can play with a bunch of back rows. Bottomless, Trap Hole, Torrential, Mirror Force, Compulsory, Book of Moon, Shrink. I mean, I could go on for days. You know what I mean. So that's the deck I chose to play. And what I did is I started off with, the essentials. I needed gadgets, so I put in, 9 gadgets. This is for my 60-card deck. I put in the 9 gadgets and I said, okay, what can I add to complement them that will also hurt the meta? Well, automatically, Banisher popped into my mind. I don't use the graveyard in my 60-card deck, and Banisher is amazing. So I threw 3 Banisher in there. I'm like, okay, what else? Well, removal. 3-dimensional fissure, 3 Macrocosmos. Okay, so now I've got a consistent monster base, and I've got removal, which messes up most of the meta. Now I'm like, okay, now what can I do to support these? And that's when I add in Bottomless Trap Hole, Shrink, Compulsory, Book of Moon, Fissure, Smashing Ground, Widespread Ruin, Widespread Duds, Sakuritsu Armor, Dimensional Prison. I mean, like I said, I could go on for a long time with that list. That's when I put in all that stuff to support it, and then once I'm done with all the support, I go, okay, what do I need to protect this? And when I think about that, I'm like, okay, well, first of all, there's a ton of mass destruction in the format right now. You've got Celestia, you've got Judgment Dragon, you've got Heavy Storm, you've got Mirror Force, you've got Torrential, you've got Dark Hole, you've got so many cards, Icarus Attack, Blackwing Backlash or whatever. I mean, there's so many cards. So, I was like, okay, well, Starlight Road is a must. So I put 2 Starlight Road in there. Now, I don't main deck 3 because 3 is a little excessive. It's just a little excessive. But then I also toss in Solemn Judgment and Triple Dark Bribe because they can stop anything. So, I mean, they're really good in that, sense. So, that's how I build a deck. So, I asked him, well, what do you want to do? And his response to me was, kill the meta. That's it. I mean, that's pretty standard for an anti-meta deck. You want to kill the meta. So I understood that. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we can do. So we started off with 3 Banisher, 3 TKR, 3 DCK. Pretty common anti-meta stuff. But to go even more on that, we were like, okay, well, let's add some beast sticks. So we threw 3 Cyber Dragon in. And then, we were like, well, what about little monsters? We threw 3 King Tiger Wangu in. And then, when you're playing King Tiger Wangu, it's always good to play Burden. So we threw Burden in. And we did the process that I just told you how I did my Gadget deck. And when we were done with his deck, we were testing a little bit. And I'd say within 15 minutes of playtesting, and he was changing stuff, adding stuff like that. Within 15 minutes of playtesting, he was beating every deck I threw against him. Like I was choosing random decks offline. I was building them on YVD and playing them against him, and he was beating them over and over and over and over and over. Consistently. So, so I said, okay, well, let's, get some friends over here and play test with real decks. So, I called a few friends over. Sorry, eating sunflower seeds. I called a few friends over, and I had them come over, and we started play testing with them, and, he started beating them left and right. And, of course, they were they were used to his old anti-meta deck that just didn't work pretty much. But when they versed this deck, it just destroyed them. It wiped the floor with them, and they couldn't understand it. And so that's my advice to all of you guys. I mean, sometimes you have to find your own way of doing something in order to succeed. Just like how I build my deck differently than someone else, it might mean I'll win when they'll lose because I built my deck differently. But anyways, the point is, I guess the overall lesson for this video is when you're building a deck, build it for a purpose. Build it for a purpose. Don't just build it randomly and then hope it works. Make sure the cards you have in the deck support your win condition and do it as fast as you can. Because a lot of anti-meta players don't play stuff like King Knight or Wengu. But when you think about it, Wengu kills half the format. I mean, it's a really pain in the ass card. It really is. So Wengu is really nice, and then if you draw Wengu Burden, like it just screws everything over. So I mean, it really is a it really is a good setup. And he's gonna be playing it at the regionals on October 1st at the Arizona Regionals. So we'll see how it does. But that's just what I'm trying to tell you guys. Just make sure when you're building a deck, make sure you build it in mind for something. Like, I see so many people build anti-meta decks, but they just have random cards thrown in there. Like, they'll have Fossil Dyna, Banisher, all this stuff is considered tech in anti-meta. But when I ask them, why are you running it? They're like, well, I don't know, it's just good anti-meta. What do you mean it's just good anti-meta? You have to understand what the meta is, and to be honest, I'm going to say this right now, Fossil Dyna is not amazing in this meta. It really isn't. Special summoning is not going to be essential. Like, the problem is with so many MST, with heavy, with all this crap running around, your back rows aren't going to live. They're just not. And you need those back rows to protect the Fossil Dyna. So all they're going to do is go summon Lila, run over your Dyna, and then special summon their shit. So, I mean, and I actually said it. I love Fossil Dyna. Fossil Dyna was amazingly broken last format. But this format, Fossil Dyna is not as clutch. He's just not. So, people need to think about their decks before they throw them together and understand what they're doing. And that's all. I hate traffic.